Well, my experience is mostly that I did run the masquerade department for a while, from second year of Detour to I don't even remember what year. Then I moved into sort of subheading programming. I've put together a lot of the original workshops that have now evolved into creative programming. I have done liaisoning with Snake Discovery to bring them in to the convention. And I was the one who originally worked with the libraries to start bringing in the manga library. Um, I would again like to do more of that outreach type stuff with other community members, such as the libraries and Snake Discovery.
Okay. Allie.
All right. What new initiatives or programs would you propose to drive the growth of Anime Twin Cities and attract new members and attendees to our events?
Okay, so I may give a bit of an unconventional answer to this, which is that I'm not so much interested in starting up new things at this point as bringing back some of the things that the pandemic years kind of caused us to lose, like having a staff picnic, or maybe even partnering with GPS to get more of our people to go to that picnic, and like the New Year's party. And the sort of the SOS clubhouse that we used to have that all kind of fell by the wayside when the pandemic happened. And then the second part of that is to bring in new members. Again, I'm going to be a bit contrarian, and I'm going to say that I don't know if at this point that focusing on new members is really what we want to be doing at this point, so much as making sure that we have the staff base that is strong enough to support expansion, because we don't want to grow so big and so fast that we lose sight of what makes Detour, which is our community. So I think getting in new staff and shoring up the staff and making the staff strong so that we have a nice strong base in order to be able to expand and attract new membership and get larger is where I would say the priorities go to me at this point. Quality over quantity.
Okay. Third one here is, are you familiar with the Anime Twin Cities bylaws, and are there any of the bylaws that you think could be improved upon?
So I see that and I double checked that this was correct right before the meeting, that the bylaws very recently were gone through by a bylaws dedicated lawyer, and revamped, updated. They're shiny. So at this point, I think it's more that I'm concerned about making sure that we have the mechanisms in place to implement the bylaws. Like, for example, if the bylaws say that a certain notification for an event has to go out 30 days in advance, who is the person who's responsible for making sure that notice goes out? So that none of those things sort of that the bylaws say we should be doing fall through the cracks, and sort of maybe communicating a little bit better why the bylaws are like with confusion about who gets voting rights and such. It's not so much that I want to change them, it's that maybe they need to be more communicated, and maybe we need to be more aware of how we're going to make sure that they're executed properly.
Allie.
I was looking for my unmute button. It's in the way of my mouse, so it takes a second. What is the role of the ATC Board of Directors, and how are we partnered with our community events like Anime Detour?
So I kind of see the role of the directors as setting the bigger, broader umbrella as to the goals of what we want for the event, as well as what we want to do with the charitable side, as well as our community outreach. So it's a lot of the stuff like the Obon Festival, like supporting some other local library cons and such, and working with them, making sure that our charitable giving aligns with our goals, and then sort of deciding, the overall broad. Obviously, we don't control the nitty gritty of what happens at Detour, but just kind of what kind of feel do we want Detour to have? Do we want to sort of preserve that community hospitality con, or do we want to start be moving more towards a giant Comic Con? That kind of questions at the bigger level of what is the fiscal and what is the community future of Detour and its partnerships.
Okay. Very good. Last question here for you is, as a board member, how would you address a situation where you disagree with a board decision, particularly when other members challenge your position on the issue? Please explain your approach in terms of interactions with both fellow board members and with the public?
In terms of the public communication, I mean, I've been handling a little bit of social media, and I feel like that even if we don't all agree, having a unified message that goes out to the public that's sort of like Supreme Court majority decision is important. And I feel like disagreement is really a good thing to have, because we don't want to be a board of rubber stamping yes men and yes women and yes non-binaries, because that would just get us into trouble down the road. And I feel like you can totally disagree with someone on their opinion as long as it stays in the realm of, well, this is detour business. We are disagreeing on a topic that has to do with how you run detour, and not we are disagreeing on how much we like someone's face or dislike someone's face. So leaving the personal politics out of it. And we're going to disagree, we should disagree, but ultimately we need to present sort of a unified decision to the public when it's made. And if we disagree with it, yeah, sort of like a dissenting opinion, maybe we could figure out a very diplomatic way to make it known. But it never looks good when you have a lot of squabbling. Disagreement good, squabbling not so much. And like I said, we don't have to like each other's opinions. We don't even have to like each other, as long as we can do what's best for the convention.
Hope you're muted.
You're muted.
Hello. Like I say, perfect. I think we're going to give it about 30 more seconds to see if anybody else sends a form question.
I'll give it a little extra time on this one because I realized that we did not actually have the form linked anywhere in either the meeting chat, like the video chat, or on the live stream itself. So I just added that in. So we'll give it a little extra time before we close it out and move on to our next candidate.
Then did anybody have any follow-up questions for
I see Nick Nelson has raised a hand, is showing up for me.
Yep. I guess I was just wondering, like, are we also going to go over like the 2 to 3 minute sort of like overview summary speech, or I know that was like one of the points that was sent out in the initial email.
Did I skip that? My bad. I forgot about that. That's on me. Lori, did you want to do that now?
Well, that's what I tried to, since you didn't do that, that's what I tried to cover in my first question. I tried to cover sort of my background with Anime Detour, that I've been going to Anime Detour since year 1. I've been on staff since year 2. I am probably one of the longest still hearers, along with Joe and some others. I'm not sure who else besides myself and Joe are still, you can't get rid of us. But yeah, like I said, I worked with the libraries at first to bring them in, and that eventually became the manga reading library, which seems to be relatively popular. I initially worked with starting to bring snake discovery in, and that's partially because I see that events like Convergence bring in like the Raptor Center, and I wanted to do something like that where we work with like a local animal rescue, but not repeating what Convergence is doing. So it was like, oh, well, how about bringing in some snakes? And I work with the programming department. I do a lot of how-to cosplay panels, like 3D printing for cosplay. And I do a lot of workshops like Tiny Lolita hats, which is always more popular than I think it will be every dang year. So that's just kind of my background experience. I've been around for a long time. Kicking around, the important parts of Detour to me are the community and the charity. And that's kind of, again, I tried to get into that in my answers too, that I feel like keeping the Midwest Hospitality Con and the community of Detour is more important to me than becoming the biggest con on the block. And as well as making sure that we keep up our charitable outreach, because that has always been something that has really made Detour special.
Perfect. I don't see any new questions filtering in from there. So,
yep, we have not had anything come in, so I'm going to go ahead and close the form for Lori.
And I'll mute up and hang out.
All right, so we are no longer accepting questions for Lori. We will move on to Nick. And Hope, since you asked the last question, I'll take the first one for Nick.
Okay, go ahead with your statement.
So do your
Sorry.
speech and then we'll ask.
You can do a speech
Sorry,
first.
Bruce.
I was gonna say, do we want to do the speech first?
Let's do
Yes.
the speech first.
Yes. Speech first. Go ahead, Nick.
All right, so just like a summary about me, I first got into anime or started watching anime with One Punch Man in late 2015. I've been hooked on it ever since then. I've been attending Anime Detour starting in 2019, and I've really enjoyed the passion and community that it fosters in people with similar interests. I've volunteered with other nonprofits before with Achieving Dreams for years and volunteered multiple times at like Feed My Starving Children as well as the Ronald McDonald House. I was originally appointed to the board in 2023 and have served in the role as the secretary for Anime Twin Cities. And I've been working in the financial services industry since I graduated from college in 2018, where I double majored in business intelligence along with marketing. And my college and work experience, I'd say, has helped me to provide the best minutes possible, as well as keep detailed records when it comes to meeting attendance, both of which are critical for the ATC secretary role. Working with the Anime Twin Cities board has allowed me to volunteer in a field I'm very committed to. I'd love to help to continue to grow the anime community in the Twin Cities and make more connections with people who love anime. I'd like to continue to work for the ATC, whether it be as the secretary or again, or in a different role. I'd love for Anime Twin Cities to expand its events and get back to some of the events that were run pre-COVID, or just implement entirely new events / collaborations in general. I'd like to continue to work with the rest of the board on revamping our policies and to continue to try to make our records and history more organized and accessible for future reference. I'd enjoy leading or being a major contributor on different board projects and initiatives. And if there's anything I could do to help keep the direction of ATC moving forward in the positive direction it has been moving in, I'd love to do that. And yeah, that's just about me and a bit of what I'd like to do on my second term on the board, if elected.
Perfect.
All right. First question. What experience do you have in planning and executing events, and how would you leverage the experience to enhance Anime Twin Cities events and activities?
Right. In terms of event planning, I did help with different projects and tasks that the board executed on in the past 2 years, but outside of that, I don't have that much in terms of event planning or experience, but I've done a lot and learned a lot over the past 2 years of being on the board. And I think with that knowledge and experience, I can help with future ATC events and activities. And there are certain skills and experiences I've gained, especially in Excel and Google Sheets from my work experience and college education, that I think can help with different tasks and projects that we are going to be working on and will work on throughout the next operating cycle.
Wonderful. What new initiatives or programs would you propose to drive the growth of Anime Twin Cities and attract new members and attendees to our events?
Yep, I'd love to help with setting up new events, whether it's just new events or establishing some of the old ones that we ran pre-COVID. I think it'd be great to do more collaborations and to reach out to more anime and anime/Asian culture adjacent events and groups. Specifically, it'd be cool to focus on events or projects around the Japanese language or learning Japanese, since that's also a big part of the ATC purpose. I don't know exactly how that would go logistically or how we would execute that at this point, maybe partnering with one of the charities or groups that we work with, like JASM, but I think that would be something that would be good in driving growth in terms of having more collaborations and events under the ATC umbrella, but also having something more involved that we can get people really into, like having some sort of program or some sort of initiative around learning Japanese.
All right. Are you familiar with the Anime Twin Cities bylaws, and are there any bylaws you think could be improved?
Yeah, I'm pretty familiar with the ATC bylaws. I read through the previous version of the bylaws a bunch of times and helped with the revisions of the ATC bylaws from earlier this year, with providing and helping with the revisions that were sent back between the board and the bylaws lawyer. I wouldn't say there's anything that needs to be fixed or that any specific article or bylaw within the amended bylaws I think currently needs to be updated, but I'd be definitely open to and would like to have the bylaws updated more frequently than we have, since I believe the current version or the previous version was amended and last updated in 2021. So it was 4 years when we got around to updating the bylaws. So I definitely would be open to and think it would be a good thing to update those more often. I think more so the policies or ATC policies we have on our site need to be more updated just to be more clean and concise and to fit with the current direction of Anime Twin Cities. This isn't like a direct replacement and isn't as critical to us as our bylaws, but it's really something that can go hand in hand with that amended one from February.
Okay, wonderful. What is the role of the Anime Twin Cities Board of Directors, and how are we partnered with our community like events like Anime Detour?
The role is a bit different if we're talking about the different officers that are part of the ATC Board of Directors, but for a general member of the board, the role is monitoring the performance of our coordinators and appointing new officers if necessary or removing officers. We also help, or the board helps with overseeing Anime Detour Convention along with any other sort of events that we have under the ATC umbrella, at which there would likely be more of once we were able to fill the vacant special events or events coordinator role. And then along with monitoring the performance of our coordinators, we also approve the yearly budget for Anime Detour and are available to help and support them, whether it's the chair team, or staff, or just anyone as needed.
Right, and as a board member, how would you address a situation where you disagree with a board decision, particularly when other members challenge your position on the issue? Please explain your approach in terms of interactions with both fellow board members and the public.
With the other members of the board, I'd like to have a discussion to hear their point of view, but to make my position clear and something that I ideally would like to work on, but to have my picture made clear and to sort of give like a high level summary of my point of view, and while giving important details, but not going too into the weeds so it's easier to understand. But depending on the result of our discussion, I think ultimately I'd respect the board's final decision as long as it doesn't raise any major ethical or legal issues or concerns. It's definitely valuable to have a range of opinions with different questions and issues that come up, and it's great to also have us cultivating a more welcoming and open environment where we feel we're able to discuss with each other and to get to the best possible solution from that. But once we come to the decision, I would stay consistent with the unified front, or the board would have a unified front on it when going to the public, and along with that to be ideally as transparent as possible on our decision.
Wonderful. I think we're just gonna give it a couple more, like 30 seconds or so, and see if anything trickles in. Don't foresee that happening, but you never know.
Doesn't hurt us to give it a moment.
Correct. The awkward silence.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and close questions for Nick. And so remaining questions will be for our next candidate, Christina.
All right, go ahead with your introduction, Christina.
Okay. Hi, I am Christina. I have been serving as the board president for approximately a year and a half now. I did join Anime Detour on the merchandise team back in 2010. Ended up becoming department head after COVID. I've been doing that for a couple years now. I also served on the board as secretary, like 2019, 2020, I can't remember exactly. And yeah, I feel like I've been doing good in my position as president right now and want to stay on the board to serve a second term to be able to keep us running.
Wonderful. I got the first question here. What experience do you have in planning and executing events, and how would you leverage this experience to enhance Anime Twin Cities events and activities?
So I basically went over my experience in my introduction. I want to try and keep helping out, getting set up for our special events table at different events, and helping run the tables at the events that I can make it to. That's about it.
Okay.
All right. What new initiatives or programs would you propose to drive the growth of Anime Twin Cities and attract new members and attendees to our events?
I definitely would like us to try to utilize our social media a little bit more. I don't know a good way to do that, but right now I feel like people just don't know about the stuff that we're doing. So we got to find a better way to communicate that out there to so people know where they can find us. Hopefully Michaela can help us a lot with that.
Are you familiar with the Anime Twin Cities bylaws, and are there any bylaws that you think could be improved upon?
I am very familiar with the bylaws. I worked directly with the lawyer that helped us rewrite them, and with Nick, with a few other people on the board, we went back and forth quite a bit until we got them where we wanted to be. I agree with Nick. Our policies need an overhaul now, but the bylaws I think are in good condition for at least the next couple of years.
What is the role of the ATC Board of Directors, and how are we partnered with our community events like Anime Detour?
So the board of directors is basically the ones in charge of keeping us an entity that is a nonprofit and following all the regulations and rules that are required for us to maintain that status. We have the monthly meetings, we hold attendance, we have a secretary and a treasurer to keep notes of everything that we do. And then we work with and direct all of the coordinators for the different divisions to help them keep their things running.
And then finally, as a board member, how would you address a situation where you disagree with a board decision, particularly when other members challenge your position on the issues? Please explain your approach in terms of interactions with both fellow board members and the public.
Yeah, I mean, disagreements are going to happen. So, I mean, basically, we just have to talk it out. I love using our chat feature in Google because it helps us be able to talk all the time, but that's not always the best way to have conversations, especially when disagreements are involved. So sometimes we got to get on a voice call and talk things through. And then, yes, working on communicating with the public on, when we're doing votes, the records of if people agree with something or disagree with something is public. So if people want to check that, they can. And then if people have questions, totally capable of being impartial, even if I don't agree with the decision that was made. So.
All right. We'll give it the awkward silence time for the Q&A questions potentially to come through. But I think that is pretty much everything for now until we close that. Oh, kitty.
The cat is here to entertain us.
Of course.
This is what I deal with every day.
But they're cute, so it's okay.
It's worth it, yeah.
Oh, she's extremely cute. That's how she gets away with it. All right, we have no questions that have come in. Shall we go ahead and close the form?
Let's double check the chat. I don't think
there's
in there, but
Nothing in the chat.
Across the chat.
okay.
Just crickets.
Just that's okay. All right. Well, I think that about covers it. Thank you, everybody, for attending. We appreciate it. And we will see everybody tomorrow at 7 o'clock for the